Hello, my spookies. Welcome to Joe's Ghost Diaries. Today we're going to talk about demons in different cultures. This is going to be a long one because we got a lot of different cultures. I apologize, I'm not going to be able to include every single culture and every single demon. I'm going to do my best to cover as much as I can. And because these notes are crazy long, I'm going to be reading them off of my phone. So I apologize for that. The definition of demon that we are going to be focusing on is a malevolent spirit related to religion, occultism, mythology, and folklore. In Christianity, which is the most common demon I feel like in media that we talk about, let's just get them out of the way now. Christianity, a demon is an unclean spirit and a fallen angel. Satan is the leader of demons who disobeyed God. He was condemned to hell, and now he has vowed to make mankind fall just like he did. So in demonic possession, a person has no control over the possessing entity, and the entity possesses without consent. There is knowledge of the ennoble, also known as gnosis, for knowledge of foreign languages, known as xenoglossia, a drastic change in voice or facial structure, sudden appearance of injuries, superhuman strength, erased memories or personalities, convulsions, and hatred of God or relics. On the other side, demonic oppression, the person has no launch of consciousness or involuntary actions. The entity does not possess, but rather influences the person's environment and circumstances. There's an example in the biblical book of Job where Satan causes a series of misfortunes for Job's business, family, and his own health, but he never actually possesses Job. The Roman Catholic Church's official symptoms of possession are as follows: loss or lack of appetite, cutting, scratching, and biting skin, cold feeling in the room, unnatural body positions, losing control of normal personality and entering into a frenzy or rage or attacking others, change in voice, supernatural strength, xenoglossia, which is the knowledge of foreign languages, and violent reactions to holy objects, entering a church, hearing Jesus' name, or hearing scripture. An exorcism is performed in the name of Jesus Christ, always. It's conducted by a Catholic priest called an exorcist, and as I'm sure you know, you actually have to go to the Catholic Church and I feel like if I say take a course, it doesn't make it sound as sacred as it is, but it's basically you take a course to become an exorcist. It's this whole fancy thing. Deliverances, however, can be performed by anyone. A deliverance is basically an exorcism, but for Protestants, where there's not as much ritual, there's no specific things that you have to read in order to do a deliverance, but ideally the end result is the same, that the person who is possessed is no longer possessed. There must be at least one witness for the Roman Catholic exorcism, and it's usually a family member. Section 11 of the Ritual Romanum has guidelines to conduct a major exorcism. Priests must have the patient checked by physical and psychological causes before proceeding, because 29% of dissociative identity disorder patients' altered personalities claim to be a demon, for example. And there's lots of other things that can cause the symptoms of exorcism. Epilepsy can cause seizures. Schizophrenia can cause hearing voices. There's lots of different medical conditions and psychological conditions that can be mistaken for demonic possession, which is why the Catholic Church now requires a patient to be cleared of all of those things before an exorcism can proceed. And I believe that they need a medical doctor on the premises when they conduct the exorcism. I could be wrong. I think they require it, though. The exorcist will say certain prayers, use relics, and invoke God in order to perform the exorcism. Multiple exorcisms are not unheard of. That's actually kind of common to have more than one exorcism performed over time. Because the possessed person is not responsible for his or her actions, exorcism is a cure, not a punishment, and should never be viewed as a punishment. The possessed person may be restrained for his or her own protection and the protection of the other people in the room, the witness, the doctor, the exorcist, because it can get pretty violent. Alright, Islam. Islam does have something called a jinn, which you may have heard of. A jinn is a sentient being with free will that can coexist with humans. An evil jinn is called, I apologize if I mispronounce this, a shayatin, and the leader is Iblis, and their hell is Jahannam. Iblis disobeyed Allah and was condemned to Jahannam and vowed to make mankind fall. Kind of like Satan in Christianity. It's a very similar story. The exorcism is called a ruqya. The patient lies down and the sheikh places the hands on the patient's head while reciting verses from the Quran. There's specific verses that glorify God and invoke Him, and they sometimes use a sprinkling of holy water. In Judaism, they have something called a dibuk, which is a malicious possessing spirit that is a dislocated soul of the deceased. And this gets into Jewish mythology, not Jewish traditionalism. So we're getting into the Kabbalah a little bit. Their exorcism is performed by a rabbi who has mastered practical Kabbalah. A minyan. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced these right. A minyan, a group of 10 adult males, form a circle around the possessed person, and they recite Psalm 91 3 times, and the rabbi blows a ram's horn called a shofar in a specific way. They believe they must shatter the body so the possessing force is shaken loose. So those are our big three Judeo-Christian Islam beliefs. Moving on into different religions. We have Western occultism and Satanism. We're separating that from Wicca. Wicca's its own entity in my mind. So in Western occultism and Satanism, a spirit can be conjured and controlled. It can provide knowledge, assistance, or power as needed. In Wicca, there are negative energies, but they do not summon them and they do not worship them. So that's the difference. In Hinduism, there are many spirits that we could classify as demons. Asuras are similar to the jinns in Islam that have free will and can coexist with humans, and some of them are evil and some of them are not. A few have challenged the gods, only to be defeated and then beg for forgiveness of the gods. Evil spirits include humans who have committed extraordinary wrongs, and they are condemned to roam the earth instead of being reincarnated. So that goes into their karma belief, that if you are so bad, you can't even be reincarnated and you're forced to wander the world. In Buddhism, they have what's called a hungry ghost, which is a human spirit who craves something insatiably. The other names for it are a preta, a peta, and a yiddick. In China, they crave food or drink, and that goes into their ancestor worship. In Japan, it is the spirit of a greedy person who is cursed to crave something bizarre, repugnant, and humiliating, like trash, fecal material, really dark, gross stuff. In Tibet, the spirits, quote, have mouths the size of a needle's eye and a stomach the size of a mountain, end quote. That idea of they're starving and they can never get enough food to satisfy themselves. In Algonquian folklore, there is the Wendigo. The Algonquian culture was on the Atlantic coast, the Great Lakes region of US and Canada. Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being with spiritual power. It's associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. Humans could be possessed and turn into one if they resort to cannibalism. Starvation or suicide was considered better than cannibalism in Algonquian culture, even if that cannibalism was to survive a harsh winter. So the idea is that the Wendigo is a human spirit who resorted to cannibalism, probably in a time of famine, and then they become these horrible creatures that wander the woods looking for people to eat. Pretty scary, don't you think? Incubus and succubi don't really have a specific culture that they're associated with, but I thought they were important to include. They are two halves of the same coin. An incubus is a male demon who lies with sleeping people, usually women, in order to have sexual intercourse with them. The encounter may result in deteriorated health and even death for the woman or person that they are lying with. The earliest mention is in Sumer in 2400 BCE in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where succubi are also mentioned. A succubus is a female demon who appears as a beautiful human woman and seduces men through sexual activity. The encounter may result in deteriorated health or even death for the person that they lie with. A succubus is mentioned in the Kabbalah, which is a sect of Judaism. A Mohini in India is the spirit of a woman who died from torment from a man, so she seeks revenge on all men. Then there is a Kirana in Arabic and Egyptian beliefs, in pre-Islamic myths, and they focus on dreams. So you dream of sleeping with this person, this demon. Some cultures say that a succubus and incubus can be the same demon, they just change form. A succubi will collect the seed from human males, and then the incubus will deposit said seed in human females. The children of these unions are called cambions, and they are considered to be supernatural. Merlin is probably the most famous one that you've heard of. Lastly, we're going to talk about black-eyed children, or Beck. B-E-K. They are young people, usually children, whose pupils, iris, and sclera, all the parts of the eye, the sclera is the white part, the iris is the colored part, and the pupil is the black part naturally. The whole eye is just blacked out. They are seen singing nursery rhymes and playing games in abandoned and deserted areas like playgrounds, which is creepy in itself. If they see people, let's say they're at the playground and they're singing and dancing and somebody's driving by slowly, they will stare and then they will approach and ask for shelter or a ride home. They sometimes appear at people's doorsteps, alone or in pairs. They behave like shy children but speak like confident, eloquent adults, which is kind of creepy and definitely unsettling. They always ask to come in, to use the phone, and to somehow avoid an unspecified danger, but they won't tell you what that danger is. People who encounter the black-eyed kids say that they feel that they are supernatural and dangerous, although they do not know why. They just have that feeling in the back of their head that something is wrong. It could be a low-level mind control, because oftentimes they also feel compelled to let them in. The black-eyed kids will become angry and insistent if people realize that their eyes are black and point it out to them. And they are said to portend ill will or doom. So if you see one, you're probably not going to win the lottery the next day. Some people believe that the black-eyed kids are the souls of murdered children looking for shelter. They must be invited or admitted into the house or car. They have to be invited. And no one knows what happens when you invite them in. There is a theory that they could end your life, but they could kill you with their supernatural powers, and when you're found, it just looks like you died of a heart attack or other natural causes. So that's why we don't know. We don't know what happens when you invite them in. And I'm not really keen to find out. Thank you so much for watching. Stay spooky. And I love you.